some of the defensive assignments we gave her because she was younger and she could run around a little bit more. We preserved, Simone. We let Chechi take on the more dynamic offensive players, and I thought she did well in that. And she's just a great teammate, just somebody you want to be around. So we're looking forward to having her again next year.
I've seen the end of a couple of your practices this week. During one of them, you were pretty tough on some of your players, and I was wondering, as a coach who spends all your time thinking about this stuff, do you go into a practice saying, this is the practice where I'm going to be tough, or is it simply a reaction to what you see?
Oh, yeah. I go into every practice hoping that I can just enjoy and high-five everybody and have a great time. I have not had many of those practices, and certainly not this week. We're just, I think, that they want to be challenged. That's the thing I find with players. They want to be held accountable. And, it's obviously difficult sometimes in the moment, but, I'm just not somebody that if I see something, I have to say something, especially if it's that is going to have a direct effect on the outcome of a game. And, some of it was, I don't know what day, that you were there, that you were speaking of. Some of it is shot selection, understanding what you're trying to get. Sometimes it's a lack of focus. You're playing a pick and roll a certain way and you don't play it that way, the way that, we're asking you to. It's a focus thing. That's what this group, I think, more than anything is, extended period of time, possession after possession. That's how you get separation in the game. You run your offense well, you score, you play your defense at a high level, you get a stop, and then you transition off of that, and the next thing you know, hopefully you have a 4-point lead. If you make a couple threes, it's different. So, just kind of getting them through those moments. Today getting a rebound, on a free throw, that you're working on your end of game situations. You got to get a rebound to be able to do it. So there are certain things that ignite, my wrath, and it's usually little things, little, very, very controllable little things. And, we've got to be able to do those things to be a successful team.
I thought it was really funny this off season. I think it was Alexis Jones or somebody who was here putting in a lot of extra work to their credit. And I think they were playing some 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 games, and you were like, you wanted to just coach him up. You felt like, but I shouldn't be coaching him right now. And you'd nudge. But
Walter. I want bad habits.
Yeah, exactly. But you nudge Walter, Shelley, or somebody, say, go talk to him.
Yeah, that's why they don't let me in the gym. Unless they want to hear it. Because again, it's just one of those things that you definitely want to make sure they know. You don't want to repeat bad habits because it's hard to break them. Right. That's typically where that comes from.
All right, one more topic I want to get to today, and once again, we'll continue to do weekly shows through the season and through the off season. Sometimes the off season shows are even more fun because we can go out to a venue and just talk about whatever we want. But the season stuff, we are going to hit basketball hard. I do want to thank another one of our sponsors, Cara Quinn, CaraQuinn, Cara Quinn. Cara at brickandbanister.com. You can find her on Facebook, Zillow, or Instagram. Her phone number is 612-203-7657. You heard me talk about her before. She fell in love with architecture in Italy, brought that passion for architecture back to Minneapolis, and incorporated it into helping you find the perfect home, a place you will love. I know, we were house hunting recently, and I wish I'd known Cara at that time because that's the fun part of looking for a house, is finding the perfect home. Find the home that kind of looks the way you want your home to look, that suits your life. Cara can help you with that. Cara at brickandbanister.com, 612-203-7657. All right, so a U.S. men's national soccer player named Jermaine Jones recently went on a rant where he was basically, I guess, belittling the women's team and the idea that the women should make as much money as the men. I guess I won't go through all of his quotes. I think that summarizes it. But as you were reading the quotes before we started the show, it sounded like every bad cliche about women's sports we've ever heard. Yeah, and that's why I said I'm glad he's saying what he's saying to get people to understand this is what people think about women. Jermaine is not by himself in his thoughts. He was we'll say courageous enough or dumb enough, to share his true feelings, and I'm glad, because we need these things to be in the light, so that we can go, see, this is what we're faced with. That first in his quotes, he calls women's soccer players who are professional players, he calls them girls. That's your first sign when somebody isn't aware, that you don't call
men's professional soccer players, boys, and he didn't. In the same quote, he referred to them as men. So that gives you a kind of a backdrop of what you're dealing with in terms of the way this person would think. He also mentioned that there's no country in the world that pays, in his words, girls the same as men. And so therefore that shouldn't happen. Actually, I think here in the U.S., the way that we should position ourselves is to be leaders in the world. To have equality is something that it's been elusive for women for many, many, many years, entirely too long. We're still talking about the same things. We still don't have the equal pay, even though there's legislation. There's Title IX legislation to increase the resources that are available for women's sports. But yet Title IX is not followed in most cases. I know University of Minnesota is tremendous. They have the Tucker Center there, so they have kind of a watchdog to make sure that things go well. But in most places you don't. And so, I think just the idea, we've talked about this before, the way that men think of women needs to change. They're conditioned for a long time. They're conditioned as young athletes. I don't know, Jermaine, I think, grew up in Germany. So Europe is a whole different animal in terms of, the way that they value men's sports over women. But I would say here in the U.S., the young athletes are conditioned very early. Unfortunately, boys are conditioned to think that they're better than girls because of the resources that they're given right off the bat. It could be also, practice times, could be facility use. Boys teams tend to get the bigger, nicer facilities. Girls are relegated to smaller facilities, and so it starts at a really young age. And people think that this is just the way it is, and this is what we should accept, and it's just simply not true. It needs to change, and we need people to be leaders in their communities and say, I want the same opportunity for girls as there is for boys. And somebody has to step up and do that. I believe Jermaine has 5 kids. I think in those 5 kids there's a couple girls, and I feel bad for those girls, that their father thinks that way, that there shouldn't be equal pay. Look at what that women's national team has done, and the notoriety and the games, and he's citing that it's easier to win the World Cup on the women's side than it is on the men's side. So just not very enlightened, as we say. This is somebody that again, he's not alone in his views, and this is exactly what women are talking about. We need this to change for us to advance in society, and whether it's in business, in politics, or in sport. And I'm thankful that the NBA, that the players in the NBA don't share Jermaine's views about women playing sports. But we have a long way to go financially, even in the WNBA versus the NBA. So there's just so much there. It was just made my skin crawl. Just reading that a person feels this way, and that But there's many. He's the one that spoke up, and I do feel bad for really all of his kids, not just the girls, because the boys are going to grow up just like him, and they're missing a whole other world out there. It'd be far more fulfilling when we see each other as our equals.
And just on the most basic, you touched on a lot of great points. I won't go that in depth into it. I will just say that to watch the women play and think, well, we just got to make sure we don't pay them very much. I mean, they're so entertaining, and they're so good at what they do, and they were just a blast. I mean, I can't imagine seeing something on a billion-dollar TV network that draws in a lot of fans, that opens new markets, and have anybody say, "Oh, just got to make sure we keep the costs down here."
Well, that's what they do for women. We see it all the time, but I think things are changing a little bit, and I think the women's national soccer team is going to be a big reason why. They're at the forefront of the conversation. Megan Rapinoe.
And they're good at it.
And they're really good at it. But even if they weren't winning,
right.
World Cups and Olympics, even if they weren't, that the conversation can't be different. It's like us as champions. We talk about media coverage. I think I always tell the story that, early on in the first couple of years, I gathered the media for lunch, and we wanted to know how we could get greater exposure. How can we be more a part of their storylines each night or each morning? And the first thing that was said was, well, you have to win. We had already won one championship, and I said that can't be the standard if it's not the same for the men, because the men that you're covering aren't winning. So
right.
it can't. Why is it? So it can't be that women have to win World Cups and gold medals to get that pay, even if they weren't. Because if the men aren't winning, then that's not the standard. And like I said, we have a long way to go. But I do think it feels like there's been a cultural shift, even though there's a lot of resistance, to the idea. But I do believe we're going to get there. I just hope that the Bobby Riggs, Billie Jean King, was more than 40 years ago. The things that they were talking about then are still the same things we're talking about now. So I'm not confident that in my lifetime that it's going to change fully. We have to keep taking steps, and we got to keep rattling the cage, and as women not accept some of the behaviors by our male counterparts. And I think it's education. So much of it is education, and that our words matter. Calling us girls when we're women is unacceptable. Your words matter, and it's disrespectful. And so sometimes it's about educating men that these are offensive words to us, or the way that you treat us. If we're in a meeting, and when a man might speak over a woman in a meeting, or worse, when a woman speaks and has an idea, a man claims that idea as their own. These are things I hear from women all of the time. It's maddening. And then I think the ultimate is being passed over for promotions for a male that might be a buddy of somebody's, not as qualified as the woman. So to be passed over for promotions, there's just a number of things. You really got me going here, Jim.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. It needs to be said. Are you done?
I'm done. I'm done for now.
Well, you're done for now.
I'm done for now.
We will get back to more basketball and more social issues and everything else that goes along with this show. I appreciate Cheryl's willingness to open her heart and her mind and tell us what she's thinking. It's not always easy. I also appreciate the people who support the podcast. Gloria Ramsey of SuccessfulMarketingGroup.com, Shelley Boyen-Breen of ShelleyBeingTheSportsQueen.com, and Cara Quinn, your local realtor. Thank you to everybody who listens. We'll be back, and we'll keep speaking our minds.